Is it pleasing to God? Is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath day or not? But they remained silent. So taking hold of the man, Jesus healed him and sent him on his way. Then he asked them, if one of you has a child or an ox that falls into a pit or into a well on the Sabbath day, won't you immediately do everything you can? Doesn't this sound like the lost sheep or the lost coin? Won't you do everything you possibly can to get them out? They believed that the Old Testament law suggests that you do nothing on the Sabbath day except worship God. You devote your whole day to God. And Jesus is trying to say, you guys are just living by rules. There was a point to that, but you're not living the life of that instruction. You're making these rules that lead to people not being helped on the Sabbath day of all days. So they had nothing to say. And they had nothing to say because they didn't want this unclean man there. This was a gathering of the Pharisees. The only reason Jesus is there is because they're challenging this religious man who's getting all this attention, and they're trying to discredit Jesus. It's the only reason he's there. The only reason the diseased man is there is because Jesus brought him with him. The Pharisees don't want this man, this unclean man there. They don't care about him. They don't care about his needs. All they care about is the Sabbath day being all about them and God. When we gather here once a week at Dulles, I want you to encounter God. I want you to feel the sacred breath of God in your soul. I want you leaving this place feeling closer to God and closer to the heartbeat of God. Encouraged that there's reality in your life. I do. I want that for you. But somehow when that is our total focus, I've got to go to church and feel close to God. I've got to go to my community group and just hopefully they can encourage me and God can remind me that He's there. If that becomes our sole focus, we immediately become disengaged with the God who's active in this world today to heal a broken, fragmented world. See, we continue experiencing Him and engaging Him and seeing Him at work in us when we are a part of what He's doing beyond just ourselves in healing and restoring the brokenness around us. And the Pharisees have completely missed this. When He noticed how the guests there at this banquet where the Pharisees had gathered, when Jesus noticed how the guests picked the places of honor at the table, He told them this parable. That is the common language of Luke or the gospel writers to say something isn't settling well in the perspective of Jesus, and so He's about to counter. These guys have gathered in the home of this prominent Pharisee, and they're clamoring with an unclean, broken man there. They don't want that man there. They're arguing and fighting for the head of the table. When someone invites you, Jesus says, to a wedding feast, interesting, He's describing a party again. Do not take the place of honor, for a person more distinguished than you might have been invited. Can you imagine? If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, and the host in Jesus' story is God. And remember, in the chapter that follows, in chapter 15, He's talking about what He's most passionate about in the world. Is just disconnecting, reconnecting those who've lost their way back to Him in a relationship with Him, the people around us. Here He's saying, when God invites us to this feast, don't assume, don't be presumptuous in taking the best seat at the head of the table because somebody more distinguished may have been invited. Jesus, of course, is referring to the broken man. The man who's lost his way, the man who appears to be unclean to those gathered in this church setting. If so, the host who invited both of you will come and say to you, can you give this person your seat? They're more distinguished than you. Then humiliated, I love this picture. Jesus is just going for the jugular with these guys. You arrogant, religious leaders who think you're closest to the heart of God and sitting at the head of the table. He's telling them, you know nothing about the heart of God. How humiliating for the host to have to come to you and say, sorry, can you give up the seat? There's somebody more distinguished here than you. And you're too blind, Pharisees, Jesus is saying, you're too blind to see that the unclean, dirty, broken man who's hurting and has no other way, no other hope. He's here. We have the potential as the religious people, as the representatives of God, we have the potential to give healing or restore or encouragement. But when you are invited, take the lowest place, so that when your host comes, he will say to you, friend, move up to a better place. Then you will be honored in the presence of all the other guests. For all those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. I grew up in this area. I'm a native here, and we just landed, Amy and I, just a few weeks ago at Dulles one night, and the new train system had just opened. Anybody been on the new